The crew from It Ends With Us is finally speaking. Have we finally found the truth? Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and I got to be honest, in reading this Rolling Stone piece, and I don't always love Rolling Stone, to be fair, but I got to say, in reading this, I think this breakdown from alleged crew members, several that they say they spoke to from the film, who can't reveal their names because of fear of getting work again, which I totally understand why they wouldn't want to publicly crap on their bosses. It makes a lot of sense here. So I wanted to go through this because, look, there's been a lot of stories, as we previously just reported, whispers in Hollywood of their ruthless ambition, Blake and Ryan's. They will do anything to succeed with their brands. And honestly, that's not a crime. It's not. They're allowed. The problem is this movie in particular for Blake. I think she just picked the wrong project. She has not been out there doing the best. And meanwhile, her family is defending, and they're saying the truth hasn't come out yet. So we're going to wait for that truth. And if that truth comes forward, we'll tell you. And you can watch this morning's video to learn more about those quick updates. We'll go through them a little bit more in our live, but I want to focus on this piece right here because it's a little bit longer, but it reveals crew members who worked on the adaptation shedding light on the feud between Baldani and Lively. And they say that the actress's demeanor shifted after production began. So let's go through this piece. Let's learn a little bit about what's actually happening. Now, 3 crew members who worked on the project told Rolling Stone creative differences and a behind-the-scenes power struggle between the two were apparent during filming. Over the course of the on-again, off-again production, the crew members say they observed Lively and Baldani's contrasting approaches to filmmaking and noted a shift in Lively's attitude while making the project. All 3 sources, who asked not to be named because they don't lose their job, seemed clear that she didn't want to be there. So that's important. They all allege Blake did not want to be there. Everyone knew they didn't like each other. Nevertheless, the feverish gossip is overblown. I think some of the rumors online seem a little strong. I don't think they hate each other, but I don't think they would work together again. Their styles are way too different. Blake is very business-minded and very practical. Justin is on the other side of why he makes art, that they were never going to be friends. And I think that's a key one. We've learned this. Blake's business, I'm launching brands. Justin's like, no, this is artistic. We need to have the message. These two flows weren't jiving. Now, it was directed by Justin, produced by his Wayfarer Studios, telling the story of Lily Bloom, who's in a bad relationship with Baldani's Ryle. And it highlights a pattern of abuse in Lily's life, which she grapples with, rekindles old romance. As we know, it's made a lot of money. And it's impossible for fans to ignore the tension between the two stars once the pair appeared to avoid each other at the film's premiere. That we knew. They even not only were they posing in separately groups and not together, Justin went to a separate theater. I didn't know that. When they screened it, they had 2 screenings. Justin went to one, Blake and the other cast went to another. So they were really purposely trying to avoid each other. Now, Hoover didn't follow Baldani on social media. Rumors of conflict between the lead and everyone else, especially Lively, who's an executive producer on the project, caught fire. Crew members who spoke to Rolling Stone all were hired and paid by Wayfarer. So that's important. I mean, granted, it's his production, so it makes sense they'd all be hired by him, but that's just something to know. Now, Baldani and Lively seem to avoid each other on set, with one source noting they never saw them together, unless it was necessary. Still, all 3 crew members say that while the acrimony may seem intense from the outside, it all boils down to a mismatch of creative approaches and personalities. There were such conflicting ideas of how to make the movie, and since Blake was bankrolling it, she was a producer, and her name becomes why the money is interested, Justin couldn't really put his foot down. But he also didn't really have a strong opinion. He's very good at directing actors and he's good at acting, but he's an actor's director. But as far as the direction of the entire picture goes, I don't think it was his sort of film. Baldani created a reputation as an outspoken feminist, deconstructing traditional ideas of masculinity. He has a podcast and book and a TED Talk, Man Enough, Undefining My Masculinity. And so, that's something that he seemed like was in his purview, coming to gender, women's issues, a woman navigating a relationship with a man, ultimately leaving her to protect her daughter. Sources say that Lively told People about the 2 instances in which there was this issue that a kiss lingered too long, and that there was back problems. Well, sources close to Baldoni say he does indeed have a history of back problems. Told his trainer he wanted to train to protect himself from injury. No confirmation of those stories, but sources told People the principal cast and Colleen will have nothing to do with Baldoni. Brandon, the other actor in the movie, as we know, came out and supported Blake, saying the women of the cast stand for hope, perseverance, and women for choosing a better life for themselves, vilifying the women who put so much of their heart into making this film, who believe so strongly, are detracting from the message. What's annoying by this whole idea that Brandon was putting out there is I have never seen Justin do this. Never. I haven't really seen the public do it. Some of the public has been annoyed with Blake, and I think it's fair criticism. And the piece that Brandon put out there, I thought was just really out of touch. Like, it's not about trying to hate the woman. It's about criticism. Anytime you criticize a woman in Hollywood, you're sexist, misogynist, and you can't ever be heard. It's like the Acolyte, that Star Wars show, for getting canceled. And the lead actress is now putting herself out there again. It's all because of the alt-right. Oh my God, girl. Sure, I'm sure there were a few of those, but it was because the writing sucked. Like, stop. Everything's got to be blamed on race and gender, and everybody's just so particular and sensitive. I do hate that part of wokeism. It's just annoying. No, that was not why. Fair criticism has been leveled at Blake, and she's ignoring it, blaming it on sexist stuff, and that's annoying me. So he issued, Sony has stood by Lively. Blake, Colleen, and so many women put so much effort in the remarkable movie, working selfishly from the start to ensure that such an important subject matter was handled with care. Audiences love the movie, yada, yada, yada. Blake, we would love to work with Blake. We want to do 12 movies with Blake. Of course they want to do that. She's the leading lady. They can't afford to piss off Blake right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if Blake or somebody on Blake's team didn't tell Sony, why aren't you supporting her right now? That kind of stuff happens all the time. They may have been pressured to release that statement. May have. Crew members who spoke to Rolling Stone said they noticed a shift in Blake's demeanor and enthusiasm during filming. She was initially excited to begin the project, bringing in scrapbooks of ideas and notes and her details of wardrobe, and it definitely was her wardrobe, which I didn't love. Set decorations. According to production, Lively had her own vision of how she wanted Lily to dress, which conflicted with the costume department's idea. And this is if this is true, it's interesting because it wasn't conflicting with Justin's, it was conflicting with the crew, other people in the crew. We went dark because of the picket lines, and at the time, the costume department was running around with their heads cut off, trying to figure out how they could change everything to make sure Blake was happy. There was a lot of returns, exchanges, repurchasing of entire wardrobes. So it sounds like Justin didn't really have that much of an idea, sort of leaned on the costume designer, and then Blake's like, whoa, no, this is the idea, and was very particular about it. She has the right. I can't be mad at that. Another crew member says the production designer who was put on the spot when Lively asked them to change the plan from her flower shop in the film. The lookbook was originally set design as gothic, rich dark violets and deep reds, what the crew member describes as a moody vibe. But when Lively came into production, they say she didn't think that looked aligned with Lively's character or style. Lily's character or style. The production designer did not respond. While the design ultimately didn't change much, the crew member says the incident was one example of the pressure that was felt behind the scenes over conflicting ideas. So they didn't even change it. She didn't even really get her way there. Again, doesn't seem like it's that negative of Blake. The three crew members say Lively was not the presence on set that they expected. She often had schedule conflicts, they say, which is common for actors, but not usually for the principal actor who's also a producer. Not long after photos of her on set leaked in the press, her passion for the project seemed to drop off, and all three noted. So they all said once those photos leaked, some of the interest from Blake disappeared. It's widely discussed among the line members of production. These sources say that Lively lacked a desire to be on set. Now, this is interesting. Why was she checked out? This idea that she was taking control. Sounds like she let Justin take control, and then Blake ended up getting control in post. There were a lot, which the crew members wouldn't have been there to witness. There was a lot of talks about it. It wasn't if she wasn't contractually obligated, she would have just scrapped the whole thing. One crew member says Justin was a little inexperienced with running a big crew, and Blake was at first too domineering because she was treating us like a bigger production than we were. Then after she stopped caring, she didn't care about anything about the shoot. Normally that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but a lot of actors are like that. But she was so invested in the beginning, and then the more she and Justin interacted, the less she cared about it. So again, if these things are true, she sort of just checked out. All the while, the production was plagued by other problems out of their control. There were union issues, there were wildfires, a lot of stuff that kind of added to the tension of things. The creative differences between the actors were apparent on set. Baldani Lively was not, according to one crew member who says the pair seemed pretty amicable. They may have disagreed, but they were civil about it. Blake had her own opinions on how she felt about things, how they should be done. Justin gave his 2 cents. Blake gave her 2 cents. She certainly had a say in scenes that trickled down to her wardrobe and all those things, but that's pretty common, which it is. Another crew member said, I feel like a lot of things you're seeing online make it sound like it was a hostile work environment, and it wasn't in any way, shape, or form. Everybody was very professional. Everyone was nice. They didn't yell at each other. There was no like, oh, mom and dad have to go behind closed doors and yell at each other. Nothing like that happened. And that happens a lot on sets, guys. According to crew, and it didn't happen here, allegedly. Crew members, Baldani tried to foster a warm environment, making an effort to get to know everyone on a personal level, to bridge that gap that typively exists between above the line, like the big deal people, and below the line talent. He would bound into a production office or onto set, high-fiving everybody, describing him as a super nice guy who went out of his way to make small talk. When Baldani was getting ready to cut his hair, he told a crew member who was donating hers to charity that he would do his as well in honor of her mom for breast cancer. So he was clearly doing what he could to offer his best to the crew. Baldani also invited crew members to attend a screening of Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, which, by the way, is a really absolutely fun movie. If you've never seen that movie, I had a blast. Super underrated. I can't believe it wasn't bigger. Starring Chris Pine. I watched it with my daughter. I literally got teary, cried at the end. I had a blast with that movie. It's just a fun movie. It's on streaming, I think, on Paramount Plus. But just shout out, not enough love to that movie. I had a blast. Anyway, the DP, the director of photography of that movie, also did It Ends With Us. And Baldani held a screening, paid for this sort of gathering for all the crew to see his movie. Cool. Justin was very much about namaste, peace and love. He's a happy guy. He was much more personable and available than pretty much every other director and certainly any other lead actor that I've ever worked with. Baldani's kindness didn't take away from the fact that some crew members thought he was green, which means inexperienced. He did this movie 5 Feet Apart, a romance that was sort of cheaper. He did a Disney Plus film, Clouds, with Sabrina Carpenter. And crew members thought Baldani was out of his depth. As It Ends With Us was a much more significant project than the others. And that's not, that's criticism, but probably fair, justified criticism. There's 2 types of directors. There's the ones who want to control every little detail, like the Christopher Nolans. They choose every color, choose every costume. And then there are the directors that hire people they trust, and they spend all their time in rehearsal in front of the camera dealing with actors. Justin was very much the latter, focused on the big picture, actor kind of big ideas. Hire your crew, hire your designers. Yeah, that looks great. That looks great. Okay, back to the actors. Baldani didn't have notes on anything. And if that's true, that might make sense why Blake had so many and wanted to see those on screen. He just hired people that he trusted, but Blake really wanted to have her fingers in every little thing, which is fine. She's an executive producer. No one was upset by that, but I think she was kind of taken aback at how sort of laissez-faire Justin was. And a Hollywood Reporter seemed to back that up. As we talked, Blake commissioned the editor of Deadpool and Wolverine to do a second cut, apparently. Crew members who worked on the set of 5 Feet Apart say they enjoyed working with Baldini, would happily do it again. All indications are that the stars didn't feel that way. Feeling may be mutual. We talked about that. I think Blake Lively is ready to direct the sequel. That was a brilliant line from him. When asked about working directly, a crew member who has more than 20 years of experience talked about working with Lively. It was fine. We'll leave it at that. It was a fine shoot. Every production I've worked on has its cast of characters, and it is what it is. It's all good. That's about as polite of a didn't love her as you can get. From the perspective of the crew members who spoke to Rolling Stone, the clash took all new life at the premiere. Because they weren't seen together, that's when things went crazy, and I think that's why they made a massive mistake doing that. Then again, one could argue that made more people talk about the film, but was it done on purpose? I don't know. Gossip only served to distract from the film and its message of DV. The marketing campaign has also been criticized, as we know. This is all the stuff we've already seen before, people. I understand that had a lot of weight, that Justin had a lot of weight on his shoulders that he was carrying. He was always reminding us that aside from the fact that we were trying to make the best possible product, We had an obligation to the victims of DV to do justice by them telling their story in a way that was respectful and accurate. By shining a light on it, he was always reminding us that this movie has the potential to change lives. Yeah, he's spot on. That's all we were looking for. Now, the movie's doing that. The movie's making money. So we'll see what happens here. But, man, I don't know, man. Whatever the root of the issue may be, the future of the franchise hangs in the balance. Wayfarer, Justin's studio, owns the rights to the sequel. Owns them flat out. They can't do it without his approval. So Blake can't go make it without him, and he's not going to be able to, I don't think he could do it without Blake. And they clearly only have a couple years to make this and keep it relevant because they'll age out. The book sequel takes place pretty immediately after, like a handful of months. So they got 2-3 years tops before this is outdated and done. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. Now, that said, Kim Cattrall came back for Sex and the City 2. It depends how big that dump truck of money is. And that could make anybody work with somebody again. And a rumor is Kyle's characters in the movie less, in the book less in part 2. So maybe Justin agrees to hand it off, but then would he not want to be handled as a producer? Would Blake want to work with something that's going to be under Justin's production company? It's a mess. Some people say the second book's not as good. Maybe this is all a blessing. I'm curious what you guys think. I think, though, my opinion, these crew members are finally saying some fair stuff. Inexperienced director, very opinionated actress, producer, clearly not getting along. He's kind of laissez-faire. She doesn't agree with a lot of it. She's annoyed he's not really focused on the tone. Sounds like she got more involved in post against him, both of which just clearly didn't like each other. I think that's ultimately what happened. Was it as big and crazy? No. The only question I still have is, well, then what's this truth that hasn't come out from Blake Lively's brother-in-law? Were mistakes made? Yes. But the truth hasn't come out yet. So will we still hear more? Sounds like it.